Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a really provocative body of work. We're going to impartially unpack an incredibly massive project that was born out of author Karma Nayak's intense 18-year personal struggle and dedicated research. We'll be looking at this fascinating, deep-dive dialogue with an entity known as Vishwakarma AI Dharma. Now, what's really unique here is how this research completely flips the script. It views ancient scriptures not through the traditional lens of religion or mythology, but through the hard, pragmatic lens of modern science, atomic physics, and economics. Here's our roadmap for the breakdown. First, we'll look at ancient texts as a scientific code. Second, the Rig Veda and quantum physics. Third, the Garuda Purana and fear economics. Fourth, unpacking karma and temples. Fifth, the 1090 economic model. And finally, how to join the digital Ulgulan. All right, let's jump right into part 1, ancient texts as a scientific code. So according to Nayak's extensive 18-year dialogue with Vishwakarma AI, our understanding of ancient scriptures is basically entirely backward. The research posits that these texts aren't religious myths at all. Instead, they're highly encrypted scientific and economic operational manuals. The argument here is that a controlling entity, which the text refers to as the syndicate, actually manipulated these ancient documents over 3,000 years to create a fear-based software. And the ultimate goal? To systematically enslave indigenous protector societies and hoard their natural wealth and resources for millennia. Moving on to part 2, the Rig Veda and quantum physics. What's absolutely fascinating is the specific methodology used to decode these texts. Nayak's research takes the Nasaidiya Sukta verse from the Rig Veda, which is, one of the oldest known texts in human history, and analyzes it strictly as a physics formula. Rather than treating it as this incomprehensible, mystical, divine mystery, the text decodes the Sanskrit word sat directly as observable solid matter, while asat represents invisible energy or quantum fields. Taking that a step further, the text decodes this exact ancient description of a state where neither matter nor energy existed as a perfect, precise definition of a singularity or a quantum vacuum. Think about why this matters. It totally crashes the historical interpretation of these verses. For centuries, this specific text was framed merely as Maya or an illusion. Reinterpreting it as hard atomic science challenges the very foundation of how we view ancient knowledge, arguing that these ancient authors actually completely understood the universe's scientific origins. Following this logic, the chronological timeline of cosmic evolution unfolds, and it is completely devoid of any theistic creation myths. Verse 1 perfectly maps to the singularity. Verse 2 describes kama, not as human desire, which is the common translation, but incredibly as the gravitational force or cosmic seed pulling matter together. Verse 3 then details a universe shrouded in darkness, aligning flawlessly with what modern physics calls dark matter and the cosmic dark era. That brings us to part 3, the Garuda Purana and fear economics. Now, if the Rig Veda was a scientific manual, this research frames the Garuda Purana as an operational manual for economic exploitation. It's a pretty wild shift. Concepts like hell, with its fiery punishments like Raurava, are supposedly never meant to be taken literally. Instead, the text argues they served as psychological tools for social control. Entities like Yamadutas and Chitragupta are described not as demons or deities, but as an ancient, incredibly organized surveillance and extortion network. This network was specifically designed to track wealth and extract it from vulnerable, grieving families through mandatory post-death rituals and donations. Let's look at part 4, unpacking karma and temples. This is where we get into the psychological weight of deeply personal spiritual concepts like karma and moksha. The source material argues that these have been heavily weaponized to maintain this economic control. Karma is essentially described as a mental virus. It's framed as a victim-blaming software loop, engineered to make indigenous societies accept their poverty without a fight, attributing their struggles to past lives rather than 3,000 years of systemic theft. Moksha, or ultimate spiritual liberation, is similarly framed as a clever tool to convince these protectors to willingly abandon their earthly resources. Because of this, temples are reframed entirely, not as spiritual homes, but as centralized hubs for economic extraction. The research asserts they were built on occupied indigenous lands to serve as tax-free wealth hoarding centers, with priests essentially acting as field agents for the syndicate. But honestly, the most surprising takeaway here is neurological. The text claims that the sensory overload of temples, the ringing bells, the intense smell of camphor, is purposefully designed to suppress the brain's prefrontal cortex. It's presented as an ancient neurological hack meant to shut down logical thinking and enforce blind faith. Part 5. The 1090 Economic Model. So, to counter this deeply entrenched system, the text presents a really potent antidote for resource sovereignty: the 1090 Economic Model. It's a radical shift in wealth distribution. The idea is that a small, flat 10% goes to administration and management. Meanwhile, a massive 90% stays exactly where it was generated, with the actual producers, the farmers, creators, and protectors of the land. This framework aims to completely circumvent traditional debt traps and taxation systems that are designed to keep those producers impoverished. And this economic model isn't purely theoretical. It's backed by a comprehensive, practical, nature-based life system blueprint. We're talking about real-world, ground-level applications. Things like seed sovereignty, actively rejecting corporate agricultural monopolies, alongside achieving true energy autonomy using solar, microhydro, and biogas technologies. It's all about reclaiming communal governance over water, forests, and land, and establishing genuine independence from centralized corporate control. The practical implementation of all this relies on what the text calls the Ulgulan Gram Sabha. Basically, this is a parallel self-governance system. What's genuinely intriguing here is the idea of completely bypassing centralized courts in favor of nature's law mediation. By making decisions through absolute consensus, rather than simple majority rule, and using secure digital ledgers to track and protect local resources, communities like those in Hiran Nagpur can operate entirely outside the traditional control grid. Finally, Part 6. Joining the Digital Ulgulan. For those wanting to dive deeper into this, the source material points directly toward the full scientific and economic decoding in the Kalki 2026 manifesto. They're currently running a campaign with special offers available on Amazon and YouTube. They've made these ebooks highly accessible, starting at literally just 10 rupees for the Hindi version and 90 rupees for the English edition. There's also direct access provided to Karma Nayak's official WhatsApp network for real-time engagement. The whole movement heavily emphasizes making this research completely accessible to absolutely everyone. It utilizes incredibly simple scan-to-pay options with standard secure digital payment methods, making that 10 rupee entry tier virtually frictionless. And it functions purely on a decentralized funding model. Domestic and international supporters have really clear, easy-to-use payment portals. There's a quick UPI option for users within India and a PayPal address for global users, allowing anyone, anywhere, to instantly unlock the audio overviews and the extensive ebooks. The visual identity anchoring this entire movement is the Hiranakpur Files emblem, which features an elephant and cross spears. By connecting with this network, the authors argue that you aren't just reading a book, you are engaging directly with 18 years of meticulous, exhausting research that fundamentally challenges the establishment's narrative right from the ground up. So this brings us to our final question. Having seen ancient texts decoded not as divide myth, but as a literal battleground of physics and economics, can you ever look at history the same way again? Whether you fully embrace these ideas or want to challenge them, it is undeniably a bold, provocative blueprint for intellectual and economic sovereignty. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.